My name is Ashley Shaw. I'm a researcher at the University of Oregon, and I'm working in collaboration with some other researchers at University of Colorado and then at Berkeley. And so I know there's a lot of enthusiasm about putting compost out on rangeland. And so later today you're going to hear from Holly Stover, who's going to talk about some of the longer term effects of compost and the long-term soil carbon storage and things like that. But I'm going to be sharing with you today some early results of this experiment that we just set up in the fall. And so with compost, you know, there's the idea that it would increase soil moisture, would help increase soil carbon holding capacity, and then also increase forage production on your rangeland. But what we really want to be able to sort out from that is, are those effects fertilizer effects? Because you know that the compost can be this sort of like slow release fertilizer, it has nutrients in it, but is it a soil moisture effect? And then additionally, a layer on top of that, how does the effect of compost differ across different precipitation patterns that you guys see out here? Is it more effective under drought? Is it only effective under high precipitation? And so what we've done is set up this big experiment here to kind of sort those things out. And so this is going to get a little wet, but that's okay. And the second little figure I have here is just a diagram of our experiment. And so the way we've laid this out is that we have these 96-foot by 46-foot amendment plots where we put down a 1/4 inch of this greenways compost, and those are paired with a no amendment plot, and then the far one is a fertilizer plot where we put down nitrogen at the same rates as what was in the compost. And then within those, we have these rainfall manipulations. So we have drought treatments, irrigation treatment, and then a control where it's just getting the ambient precipitation. And the idea is that we can compare the effects of compost across those precipitation treatments, but also how that differs compared to what amendment we added. And so we added the compost in November before it started raining. And this area down here on the land was pretty heavily grazed. This was basically bare ground in November. And up the hill, it was moderately grazed. So the grasses were still there. You couldn't see the ground like you could down here. There are 4 blocks in total, so with the 3 amendment plots, so this is one here, this is one here, and then there are 2 more up the hill for a total of 4. And you can see in the picture at the bottom of the first page was the application of the compost in November, and then what that looked like when it was all dry and with the compost applied. Now that everything's green, you can't see the compost on the ground. So if you flip to the second page, I do want to share with you some early results that we've been getting from this project. We're basically standing right in between 2 compost plots. This one here is a compost plot, and this one is a compost plot. And when we came out in November, it was pretty striking. The production on these plots was much higher than the production in the no amendment and the fertilizer plot. And so we took a look at the soil moisture, and what we found is that especially in these drought shelters, there is about 10 to 15% higher soil moisture. It was more effective than in the ambient or the wet. Those were still a little bit more moist in the compost plots, but the biggest effect was in those drought shelters. And so one of the things that we're interested in is how does that affect not only the growth of the plants, but also how long they're active. Do they stay active longer if they've got more moisture in the soil? And so we go out with cameras and record greenness or activity. And I just got the last of the data yesterday, and in these drought plots, they're staying greener longer, where we had 75% greenness just yesterday, whereas in the no amendment and the fertilized, those are all the way below 25% green. And so it's pretty exciting that we can link up that soil moisture to how long those are staying green. We don't think that it's a fertilizer effect, at least not for nitrogen, because we don't have the same results in those fertilized plots. Now, you guys might know that compost has been shown to increase productivity of the different plants on the rangelands. And so one of the things that we have found, we clipped biomass when we were here in April, and the biomass in the compost plots is about 30 to 35% greater than the biomass in the other two plots. And we are comparing those across the different groups. So we have forb versus grass biomass, and also we've done some composition surveys to look at what plants are here. From those results in April, this lower area, of course, as you can see, there's more forbs here. This was a heavily grazed area, and then up the hill is grass dominated. But when you compare the compost plots to those other plots, they're more evenly balanced. There's more grasses in these lower ones, and there's more forbs in the upper ones. So there seems to be a more even distribution of forbs to grasses. So those are the results from April. I don't have the numbers for May, but between April and May, the grasses grew a lot down here. These were much shorter when we were here in April, so I'm pretty excited to see, what the production was between now and then. Yeah, and I think those are the main results that I have to share with you today. And I would be happy to take questions. I know that there's enthusiasm about compost. Yeah.
So for the plants staying greener longer,
Yeah.
Is that across the board of all species, or is it? I mean, certainly theologically, some species stay greener longer, like Medusa head. So are you seeing more Medusa head in those plots?
Oh, that's a
Are
great
those the ones
question.
staying greener longer, or is
That's
it
a
all
great
species
question.
that you're looking at?
Yeah. So it is all species for the most part. Some of the things that come up really early are brown in all the plots. But so one of the things, like the clovers and the fescue, are brown for the most part in all the plots except for these drought treatments. And so there is Medusa head, but for the most part it's the same in all the plots. So we haven't really seen any big effect of Medusa head in any of them. I don't think that compost is going to reduce Medusa head, but maybe it will, but it doesn't seem to increase it either. Yeah.
What are you using for compost, and where are you getting it?
Yeah, we got this from Feather River Organics. Is that right, Holly?
Yeah, I think that's one of the typical sources that our group has used in the past. And for this particular study, we sourced it from the Western Compost Facility. So that's in Marin County.
Yeah. And it's a green waste compost, so it's mostly different types of manure mixed with animal bedding.
And so how much does that cost? I mean, if we were up here and that's in Marin, that's not going to be cost effective.
Yeah, I don't have a detail on the cost. I know that for this one we got 9 cubic yards to cover this project.
It's about $800. So it is quite expensive. It's just kind of, I guess you have to do the cost benefit analysis and people save money on feed. And hopefully the compost will be more readily available in the future. I know that a lot of the state government agencies are looking into getting it more widely implemented. And there's a lot of ranchers that are looking into doing it on a local scale too. So I think it will become more available in the future.
And locally, our ecology, just outside of Marysville, makes a really nice compost. It's been about 10 years that we did a compost study on the other side of the hill, and that was sourced from the college. Pretty nice compost, but it's a little more work.
So you did 2 amendments. You did a food waste and
No,
green
not
waste.
here. Just the green waste here.
Just the green waste here.
Yeah. Holly's going to talk about the 2 amendments later today. Yeah.
Do they use a Sovita scale, or you just go on the recommendations based on the producer, or because there's a lot of people. We were just down at Lauren Ponch's place. He's producing his own compost, and I was curious how he or anybody would judge whether it was totally broken down.
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know how well regulated compost is as far as judging when it's finished, but there are some processes for how you make compost, and once it reaches a certain temperature over a certain period of time. But I don't know how. I mean, depending on what you put into compost, it's always going to differ. They're not going
There's
to be
just some of
exactly
the
the
soil
same.
yards that just basically say beware. There's a lot of raw material that is not broken down, and
Yeah.
it's
I would say go to a reputable place. With this Feather River Organic, the compost has reached a temperature where, the seeds they should be killed off, and there shouldn't be anything growing from the compost. I would say with the make at home stuff, it's a little bit more of a risk with that. I mean, you really need to reach a high temperature to be able to kill everything off in there. Yeah.
What was your application rate for your compost?
We put 1/4 of an inch down.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then why do you think you're getting like more like a balance between your forbs and your grasses? What do you think is driving that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think there's two things going on. One is that down here, because it was pretty heavily grazed, the forbs were dominating anyways. They were just what was coming back. But I think by having that extra nutrients and extra soil moisture, it lets the grasses compete with those. So it kind of tends to favor these more competitive groups. That's one of the worries with the compost application, is that if we put it down for a long time, maybe it will cause these competitive annual grasses to outcompete some of the other groups that are more resilient to drought. And so that's one of the things we're really checking for. I'm not totally sure why we got so many forbs up at top. It was just a couple of groups, mostly some of the clovers, that just really took off in those compost plots, which I don't have a great answer for. Maybe they like the extra soil moisture. I don't know. But yeah, we would think that they would favor those competitive grasses.
What was the analysis, nutrient-wise, of compost?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to defer to Holly again for this one. So Holly is another collaborator on the project.
Oh, this is the plot. There you go.
Yeah, so when compost goes through, it has to be and it varies from batch to batch, but yeah, basically what we did was with the fertilizer treatment team, we matched the same amount of available nitrogen in both treatments, and I think it ends up being about 10 grams of available nitrogen per meter squared.
What about P&K?
That I don't have those numbers offhand, but it's quite much.
Because that's, I have the opportunity to get some compost, and my decision for the P&K, my decision making is based off of, how do I get the P&K cheapest?
So those are more ideal.
Yeah, so I think, I've heard that from a neighbor that I can get compost with the P&K for about 60% of the commercial cost on that place, and I'm trying to use compost, but other places I need to know whether or not I can replicate the results with commercial fertilizer, where I can't get the big trucks in, where the haul makes it prohibitive. They can
talk about it further too. Like we might not have the numbers off the top of our head, but we can connect later. But they certainly have really detailed information about
Is this a longer release? The compost would be a longer release for nutrients?
Hey, Nikolai, we can't hear you over here.
Apparently he can't hear you over there.
Hey,
Saying
Nikolai,
Yeah. Can you
we
repeat?
can't hear you guys.
Can you
Oh, yeah.
You guys got to project.
No, I was just mentioning. I was just asking Holly and researcher Holly if the compost does it release nutrients longer in a longer period of time, and maybe less but it maybe fulfill itself and release those nutrients a little bit longer
Right.
versus commercial fertilizer, which may disappear in the environment
That's right.
and dissipate very quickly. And Holly was saying yes, the compost will slowly release over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's not a fertilizer or an amendment. It doesn't have a label.
It does have a label. I mean, we tend to call it an amendment, and refer to it as a slow release fertilizer.
Yeah, I just, and it's up to the supplier. A lot of the times the supplier will have an analysis, and I compare it with making beer. It's an art, and you can get some consistency, but you better get a supplier that knows just what they're doing. And compost is kind of a generic term for it. There's a lot.
Sorry, one question over here, and then get to you. Thank you.
I don't know if you know or can explain the mechanism for what's happening in terms of water availability or longer water availability in the drought scenario, and I'm curious, do you think that effect will be long-term or short-term?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the water availability, the compost is increasing the soil organic matter, and it has a higher water holding capacity than the soils that drain relatively quickly. So by increasing the organic matter, it's able to kind of soak up that water and then hold on to it for a much longer time than the soil alone. And so rather than the water just draining off after a rain, it can hold on to it a little bit longer and make it available for the plants for a longer period of time.
Is one of the questions, though, that how long, whether or not the compost actually increases organic material permanently or just temporarily?
Yeah, I do know that in Holly's presentation a little bit, she's going to be talking about the long-term effects of compost, but it has been shown to last over quite a long time. Because that organic matter is already very highly decomposed, it's pretty resistant to more decomposition in the soil, so it tends to stick around for a very long time. I don't have a number on like if it's 10 years or 20 years or something like that, but it should be on the order of decades, not just like a couple of years, as far as how long that organic material stays.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's some potential to offset the cost on the carbon market and with carbon sequestration for ranchers. Are you looking into that?
Yeah. Again, I think this is going to be more in Holly's presentation, but there are some incentives for applying compost as a carbon mitigation strategy. The California Healthy Soils Initiative has that as part of its plan and one of the mitigation strategies. And so it can be used as a carbon offset, but I'll let Holly go into more details on that later.
Are you looking at the effective microbial biomass?
That's a great question. It hasn't been something that we've directly asked, but we did collect some soil samples this year that we brought back to the lab, and we have, they're sort of in a holding pattern in the freezer, hoping that someone will be able to do that, because it is something that goes along with compost, right? Like when you increase this, it also increases the amount of, space for microbial biomass to grow. It could be coming in on the compost a little bit. And so maybe there's more microbial activity making nutrients available. I don't have answers for that, and we haven't directly tested it yet, but I do have some soil samples sitting in a freezer that hopefully will get to that. Yeah. Yes.
Are you going to be able to, or have you looked at the various nutrient components as applied, and then soil at depth, and treat or track those over some period of time, like what's happening with NP&K, for instance?
That's a great question. So we have taken, I took soil samples down to about 12 inches at different depths, about 4-inch depths. And our plan for those was to look at the roots to the different depths, but we could definitely take subsamples of those to look at nutrients. So for the most part, we do nutrients to about 6 inches. And yeah, but that's a good question. I'm not quite sure I have an answer of how it moves through the soil profile. But in theory, it would. Yeah.
question.
Yes.
It seems like all this land, maybe not here, but different places, we've chopped down all the trees and all the brush, and they were the natural compost with the animals that lived on. And so it seems like it's a great idea to bring in this compost, but I can tell you, it's going to be so expensive, and if somebody's going to pay for it besides the renters. It seems like we need to be working with the environment that we already have. I was telling somebody about the river, and you look at how many acorns fell off the tree, and that would help you figure out what the weather's going to do or whatever. And so, anyway, I would encourage getting some of the natural environment to do some of the natural compost.
Like planting oak trees, like you're envisioning instead of composting, there's oak regeneration projects over the rangeland.
Yeah, and then you do it in certain areas, and then maybe harvest some of those trees and then leave it to certain areas. You could do both. It's not that you can't do both, but I'm just a small ranching one. I just have to be how we can afford it. I mean, I hauled from the feed store a truckload of hay and put it in certain spots and compost,
Yeah.
not great composting, but just something that's not in the soil. But I'm thinking about planting more trees and different places and getting more habitat.
Yeah, I think identifying the optimal strategy for the land that you have is the best way to go. And one of the things with this that, maybe as a takeaway is that, we did increase the production up on the moderately grazed, but down here it was the most striking. And this was a very heavily grazed, highly disturbed site. So potentially, thinking about where the best places to apply it and where it's going to have the biggest impact might be more financially, viable. Yeah.
Very good. Maybe one more question, and then we'll probably head up to our next stop.
Sorry. So you just applied the compost on top. You didn't integrate it at all. In your considerations for suitable amendments, have you considered anything that has maybe a bit more recalcitrance, staying power, to increase that carbon sequestration factor that you're considering? I know biochar is kind of a hot topic. I just finished my master's thesis related to that as a soil amendment. And I just know that with the soil holding capacity, which is what you're seeing results with primarily, it's been pretty well suited for that. So I don't know if that would be something you want to consider.
Yeah, biochar, like compost, is another hot topic for soil sequestration. I am not sure how it directly compares to, for this project, I don't have biochar to compare it to, so I don't know what the difference would be. But I've seen results that it's certainly a good carbon sequestration strategy. I think identifying the goals, if that's your main goal, biochar could be a great thing. I don't know how it does for improving forage or anything like that. Yeah, right. I don't have those data, so I just don't know. Yeah.
All right, let's just thank Ashley real quick for that great job.